welcome back to episode 13 of Deep Dives in the Desert, and I am so excited about our guests today. We have the beautiful Katie Taft from Katie and the Chorus. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, and then of course we got my lovely dad. He's back in action, and we're super
Yay.
excited about that. So
Yes, I'm upright.
He's out of the hospital, thank goodness.
yes, we made it through. So we have a lot to cover today. I wanted to go over your first book and then just kind of wherever the conversation takes. So yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I think for me it was really important to cover the first book and kind of go in sequential order because there's so much here and trying to understand. And we have a lot of people that watch us that are kind of new to all of this information. So talk about deep diving, like going into this, in the chorus, it's going to be like, wow. So you want to tell a little bit about yourself? One of the things that I just wanted to cover first that maybe you can incorporate is just like, who are the chorus and how did you guys find each other? But if you want to kind of give a little info about you too first.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So hi, I'm Katie. I was in technology strategy for years before I became a channel. And in fact, found channeling accidentally, you could say. I started to get sick and was looking for answers. Basically, I had run the long list of Eastern and Western doctors and still couldn't figure out what was going on as my symptoms were worsening. At the time, I was listening to Abraham, Esther Hicks, and I had been, trying to do the law of attraction stuff with my disease, and I was not attracting the solution. And I think it occurred to me one day, I was very frustrated that, wait a second, if this is possible, maybe I could channel and maybe I could find a perspective that would help me to understand why this has been so difficult. And so I got a book on how to channel and I read it and I prepared. And then, of course, preparation goes right out the window. And one night I had a particularly very bad night and I just sort of sat down and opened and definitely felt something, a very palpable something. It wasn't words in the beginning. It wasn't that specific, but it was definitely a very loving sensation. And it was definitely more than I had ever felt in my remembered human life.
Mm.
So I continued to open to that sensation. It became like a place of refuge for me. I'd go seek it out in the evenings, and over time, there became words, there became, more and more specificity, more and more clarity about who I was talking to. And I gave them the name The Chorus early on. I did not understand at that juncture how many different voices there are in the mix with them, but they thought that the name was perfect. In fact, they were overjoyed by the name in a way that I didn't understand until many, many, many months later when I started to sense their differences. So the chorus, by their own definition, I think by ours, they are non-physical beings, meaning they're beyond the wavelengths of our five senses. So hearing, sight, taste, touch, however you want to define our sensory perception here, they exist on wavelengths slightly beyond it. Another definition that they've given for who they are is that they are non-belief holders. So by their view, the physical dimension where we exist, the basis of that are beliefs, which are to them physical energetic structures that create this experience here. And so by their view, if you are a belief holder, you are a participant somehow in the physical dimension, and they are beyond belief.
So,
Yeah,
so does that tie into the belief system complex that you mentioned in your book too? Because hopefully I interpreted that correctly, but I know it's like a disallowance of energy, how we're able to experience these said things, and it's all the structure is based off of what we actually believe. Did I
Yes, very good.
do that right?
So this is their core premise, you could say. This is the way they introduce the way they see us. So we are belief holders, and our beliefs are a manifestation based on our resonance. we chose a resonance of the disallowance of energy, an experience of it, basically. You're using energy to create the experience of disallowance of energy. So you can't really cut yourself off, but you can give yourself an experience of what that would be like from this conscious perspective. So based on that resonance, we generated these beliefs. And these beliefs begot beliefs, begot beliefs until we have what they call a galactic sized, massive belief system complex that we all participate in. Our reality here, they say, is a group consensus reality, meaning we all sort of agree to believe sort of the same stuff. So when we participate in something like this, the experiences that we all have contribute to the database. And that database is constantly updated by everyone who's resonant on these frequencies. And we participate together, sort of, in the generation of an experience of, by their view, limitation, where not a lot changes. Now, I know we might feel like a lot changes. I have more gray hairs this year than last year. But where they're coming from in the infinite flow of pure energy, things are changing billions of times per second. And here it's quite reasonable that we could have a desire that we hold for decades and it never quite comes into our lives and changes it. So because we've agreed to play as a group consensus, there are ways that that impacts our lives and our experiences here. But ultimately, the foundation of it is our choice to resonate here and create these structures for this experience.
So what I wanted to just kind of segue right into when it comes to the manifesting and when you're going to go into something new. And so you have that feeling of uncomfortability. Is that with the beliefs, those beliefs, is that activates a lot of limitations on getting, is that how that works? If you have too many beliefs, it starts to create limitations in what you can do? And how did you bust through that limitation?
I don't know that I have. I think in many ways I'm still playing. But so the fun, maybe one way to think about limitation is because it's easy for us, especially right now with everything going on in our reality, to be like, oh, I'm so limited, because we see things like I stubbed my toe, my skylight just leaked, things go wrong and it feels limiting. Like I would rather be somewhere happier on a beach. But from their view, the limitation is actually a disallowance of the perspective of our infinite connection to the rest of the universe. So it is the genesis of why we feel alone sometimes, why we feel misunderstood sometimes, why life feels hard sometimes. Now, out of that, humanity has created even more beliefs for how to deal with it. So prevention and protection are two of our biggest beliefs that, going back to the, law of attraction, actually create more and more things to protect and prevent. So, but we believe in prevention and protection because first we exist in a reality where we're disconnected from so much of our infinite selves that we get surprised, right? Like we didn't expect that bad thing to happen or that tree to fall down or that whatever, right? This is the pitch for survival. We're trimmed down to 5 senses. We go forward into this experience, unable to tap into our own energetic tools and create from that perspective. So they said you created a world where you actually sort of believe that the tail end of the process was the start of the process. By the time it's trickled all the way down into the physical reality, you move it around in the dirt, trying to create the things that you want. And they say that the reason we chose to do this was actually to experience our emotions. So in the first book, as you guys know, they spend a lot of time talking about human emotions. And by their view, we have it on a spectrum where positive is over here, negative is over here, and you line them up sort of in degrees. By their view, it's a 3D array. So they are in motion like water all around us. There are interplays, there are ways that they combine, there are ways that they evolve. But from this conscious perspective, that wasn't what we came here to understand yet. We came here to basically put ourselves in an experiential field where we would be trimmed down into just going through the motions of this limitation, experiencing all these aspects of the disallowance of energy and understanding how that feels.
Mm.
So one of the things that they talk about in the first book, which is foundational to them, but was a brain bender to me when I first channeled it, was that though we have a positive and a negative end to our spectrum, like we very clearly prefer joy, to them, these are actually all varying perceptions of limitation. The middle point, the new point of neutrality, is what they would call love, because love to them is allowance. And in allowing all things, you are sort of actually stepping out of the belief system complex for just a moment. You're not actively thinking, generating beliefs, or being driven by beliefs in that constant analysis, thinking, surviving game that we play. In a moment of pure allowance, you're in total presence. And in presence is where we actually begin to reconnect to our vaster energetic selves. But the mind, as it's represented here, based on these frequencies, abstracts us out of the present moment often, all the time. Our brains are churning all day long. And that's because it was the perfect driver through many of these sensations of limitation that we are absorbing the knowledge about energetically from our larger selves, even though and because this limited perspective continues to be unaware of that.
So that was one of the things that I wanted you to talk about, was their definition of love. But can you share with us also, because I found it so interesting, what anger is, and also fear? You know,
Yeah.
how they kind of look at that? I thought it was so interesting.
Yep. And again, with all of these things, they're as emphatic as anyone that these are just perspectives. This is the way they see it. It's not like we have to give up our human position on this and just switch over to the chorus. In fact, they're very encouraging that as we continue to go through awakening, what's happening is we're making room for more and simultaneous, the ability to hold multiple perspectives at once, and how that causes even greater clarity as opposed to having to pick one. They often call our reality the reality of singularity, because we're all about the one best thing or the one definition we like most. So I'll start with fear. So, by their view, an energetic definition of our sensation of fear is the fence line, meaning the furthest belief that we hold or are resonant with. So, it's sort of like walking up to the edge of what your beliefs are allowing you to perceive about your larger self at any moment in time. It's not a hard and fast fence line like we have fences here. It's definitely dynamic. But if you think about it, oftentimes the things that we're afraid of are things that if we did go forward and were successful in, might radically alter our identities and our sense of self. So I'll give you an extreme example. Let's say that we're all afraid of summiting a very tall mountain. Well, if you were able to do that and you went forward, you might see about yourself more physical stamina and ability than you realized you had. That would mean you would be less limited than you were before. Now you have a broader view of what you're capable of. Another thing that we're often afraid of, and this is why fears are so specific to each of us, like you might not be afraid of summiting a mountain, but I'm terrified. That difference in our perception of fear usually has something to do with what it would reveal about my larger self that it might not about you or another person.
Mm.
So some people have a deep stage fright. And again, if they were able to confidently walk on stage, it again might very much violate their experience of limitation. They might realize how much they have to say, or their self-confidence would radically shift. And then the direction of their experiences here would be changed.
Yeah.
Well,
So we have a lot of conversations then in the podcast too about, okay, well, what do you do then as a human? Right? That's a very fascinating definition. But then do I face all my fears? Do I push through them? Do I step out of the comfort zone as much as I can?
mhm.
And they go back to again and again, well, you're awakening. I mean, the fact that you can have this conversation about fear already shows that you're expanding in your perception of what you created. So you can love fear and say, thanks, fear. I'm going to steer clear of that today. You can push through it and really try hard to summit that mountain no matter what. Really, you can have any experience that you prefer with fear, because this is one of the tenets, the core guidelines, I don't know, suggestions maybe that the course makes, is to follow your preference over and over and over again, that is your connection to your path of greatest expansion. Your preferences speak to you and your heart at any given point in time. They are speaking to you. And so, if one day you prefer to charge up the mountain, go for it. If one day you prefer not to, and it might be the very next day, you don't have to, because so many things are lifting and changing right now around the board, that what we're around the game board, they often call this the game, that really what we're coming to is a much vaster sense of what is out there and what is
Mhm.
possible. And the way to navigate that is through your own sense of what you prefer and desire through any point in time, because there really won't be clear right or wrongs in the infinite universe. There really won't be clear winners and losers. It's a multitude of perspectives and options that are constantly in flux.
So let me ask you, when does that kind of cross paths with, 'cause you have to be, I think, careful of having a preconceived notion of when that, or where it's gonna come from, like maybe to overcome the stage fright, or how it's going to happen. So when does yeah, kind of the preconceived notions become detrimental to kind of moving forward in this?
Do you mean I have a preconceived notion that I am afraid of stage fright? And so,
Yeah, and that maybe a certain this is what's going to, my preconceived notion is that, I'm going to manifest whatever from this place, but it kind of, if it limits us in to, right, to that one area where if we stay, I guess, say neutrality, right, since it'll open us up. Without that preconceived notion, it opens up that we don't have so many limitations as just as one area to get over, say, stage fright or financial abundance or whatever it may be, because it could come from almost anywhere.
mhm.
So is there a
I,
place where like those preconceived notions really start to hurt you?
um, I think I understand what you're saying. Let me try and answer it, and then you tell me if I did.
Mhm.
Um, so let's say that you have a fear of stage fright,
Mhm.
and yet you really would like to get up on stage and do something. Okay, now you understand that there are some aspects of you and what you currently believe that are causing that fear, whereas
Mhm.
somebody else can just like trot right up on stage and not be concerned at
Yeah.
all. And you probably detest that person, right? So the way the chorus is saying is that there are many ways to go about it. And you can go about it in a physical way, which is to push yourself through those physical actions. You can also go about it in an energetic way. So bringing things to consciousness is a way of releasing them, because in doing so, you are no longer driven by their subconscious action in your belief system. And once you see them, you can then make an alternate choice. Haven't we all been there where maybe we've been in a relationship or a job or something like that, and we just kept doing it, even though we really didn't like it? And then one day you sort of have this aha moment. You maybe even can't put your finger on it, but you go into the job and you respond differently.
Mhm.
Now, you could say that what you just did was pushed out your fear fence line. Maybe fear, the sensation of it, wasn't even consciously involved in the same way it's so obvious when you have a stage fright scenario, but there's a resistance that you know that you have. And so when you go into it, you're starting to become aware of it, right? And then it comes to consciousness, and you're sort of like, yeah, I really haven't liked this job for a long time. And I think this is why. Because that is now conscious to you, when you go into that situation again, there will be other choices that will be available to you.
Mhm.
And you will be able to choose differently and basically direct your path in new ways.
Sorry.
It's okay. Is it? I'll try and gesture. So The preconceived notion concept by the Course's view, you could say that every single belief that we have is preconceived of, right? We vibrated here, created these beliefs. They're all in the database driving our decisions and our actions and our choices, and we didn't know it. We were just here to live it. And now we're starting to awaken to the things that are in there that, oh my gosh, I guess I did believe that. Or man, I guess I did think that. And as we awaken to more and more of that, they can't drive us in a subconscious way any longer.
Mhm.
And what you might notice in a single instance is that you're no longer afraid of that thing. Or you might wander off and have this whole job scenario unfold in your life. And then a friend invites you to this karaoke thing 3 months later, and you arrive at the karaoke thing and you say, I'll go up. And it's as subtle, as easy as anything, because really you were bringing to consciousness some of those beliefs in another way, in another aspect of your life. So they're all flowing and they're all connected. I mean, a short way to say it is it's all you, it's
Mhm.
all us, it's all our beliefs. So there really is no corner of your life that you're not awakening through, potentially, by the Course's view.
Mhm.
By our view, we might feel like we've been stuck in certain areas of our life for a really, 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 really long time.
Yeah, yeah, it's no, it rings true because that literally was, you know,
Yeah, your example was him.
it was
so.
that was me.
Yeah.
I had a phobia of speaking in front of people, and the way it came about was really because of her. And it was only because it was more painful for me to embarrass her and just like walk out of the event because I wasn't going to go speak, or to go up. And I figured I'd rather make a fool of myself up there than make her look bad by not going up.
So
And I end up going up, but it was the weirdest way to do it. And then, soon after I got promoted into a position at the bank where I had to speak in front of people. And if I didn't do that, it would have stopped me. So it was just, yeah, and I didn't think it would ever come from where it came from. It just, the whole thing. So when I was looking at that, I was just like, wow, my preconceived notion, it was coming from somewhere totally different. And it hit me blindside, and it worked great because from there, I just shot up. It opened me up.
And isn't that, I don't mean to project on your experience, but it sounds like love was a big part of that choice. And that is the center point of neutrality that the Course says when you hit that frequency of love, you really are momentarily pausing your participation in the beliefs. So it is a way to step through a fear fence line because you're not pushing against those things, thus energizing them, right? If you're like, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, you can do that, but man, it's going to get tense. But, instead you were sort of like, I love her. This is worth it. It'll be okay. Rather, just do this and let it pass. So there was this other conversation going on inside of you, which veered you closer into I'm just going to let this be what it is because it's worth it to get up there.
Yeah.
And then you walked right through it.
And it was very close because I leaned over and I was like, and then I didn't say anything. And she's like, what? Because I was going to tell her, I'm going to go to the bathroom, but I'm walking out the front door. And I'll start walking home. You just come pick me up. Tell him I died. I don't care. I'm out. But I went, and I stopped.
That's
It was close.
amazing. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you for that too. So can you talk a little bit about anger?
Sure. So an energetic definition of anger from the Course is the emotion of becoming. So you are in the process of becoming you're accessing another version, larger aspect of yourself. So you could think of it in a whole sense of like you're becoming the next layer. You could think of it in one area of your life, however you like it. And that friction between what we are expanding into and what our belief systems are still saying is possible, we call anger. As we continue to go forward in awakening and some of our abilities to embrace a moment of expansion also grow with us, the sensations of anger will change. That particular friction that we're feeling right now is a particular friction of this phase of awakening. However long it lasts for us, I don't know. I don't have all those answers. But basically, what's happening is in an experience of anger, you are sensing something huge that's possible, that you can do, that you should be able to do, that it is out there that you want. And then you're also feeling all these things in the belief system complex, these limitations that you can't, or you have obligations or responsibilities, or you don't have the money, or okay. And a sense of powerlessness to get from one to the other. And that powerlessness is so different than the supremely powerful place of infinite energy that we come from, that that friction feels terrible to us, and we call it anger.
Isn't that
Now,
interesting? Wow.
That is cool.
I thought that was so interesting.
That
I was
is.
like,
That's
wow.
an interesting way to break it down. Okay.
Every time you talk, my mind starts going, yeah, I start thinking about all different things.
So I wanted to also just say, because I know I've told you in private, but just for the audience, it was funny because I found you later than when you started your podcast. I saw you in Grafton 2 years ago first, and got to meet you and see you channel there. And then started watching your podcast and bought the books and everything. And went through a stage where it was like I'd catch a podcast every once in a while. I kind of started at the beginning and I would listen to it and maybe go, I don't know, 2 weeks, and then I'd listen to another one or something. And there was a point where there was something inside of me that was like, listen to the podcast. You need to listen to the podcast. And I would listen, and it would be always correlating to exactly what I was dealing with at that moment. And the weirder thing about that was I kept them in sequential order. So not knowing, what was coming next or what it was, like it had happened over and over again. It kept happening. And I was like, I reached out to you at one point and I'm like, hey, I don't know how you're doing this, but because it's happening. And then I would talk to him. It was like two different times that we were in the car earlier on in this. Like maybe it had happened, I don't know, 6-7 times by that point, which is a lot, right? And I was in the car with him and I had just been talking about something. And he was like, why don't you put Katie on? I was like, okay. So I put you on, and the first 3 minutes you were talking about something and we both went,
like, holy shit.
how did she
What
do
the
that?
hell
It
is
was
going on?
so weird. And then I was like, see, I told you, she keeps doing this. It's like every single time. And then I listen, and it's exactly what we were just literally speaking about. And then it just kept happening. So then I saw you the next year, last year in Grafton too, and got to spend some time with you. We got to eat lunch with you, which was his favorite part, by the way,
Yeah.
of
thank
going to
you.
Grafton. He said, I think my favorite part of the whole thing was getting to sit down and have lunch with Katie.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolute favorite.
Yeah. And then we got to see you channel again.
Yeah.
And anyway, we became fast friends. And I told you, I said, this is ridiculous now, because now this hasn't happened, even 24 times. We're talking about somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah.
That this
Wow.
it's incredible. And I was like, okay, at this point, she's something, this whole thing, she's something more to me. The chorus is something more to me. I don't have it figured out yet. I don't know why, but it's almost like you're my, I don't know, my mentor. But
It is crazy. Like, I couldn't believe the synchronicity was
it was
was wild.
insane. And it just kept happening.
Wow. Wow. I feel like I'm your pace coach. I'm like running next to you.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, here comes the circle.
It's crazy. And going through this process with you, whether you were aware of it or not. But then you were talking about things that I was dealing with too, on the larger scale of like physical manifestations, when it came to dealing with things like you would be talking about the trees and what you found out about the trees. And I was literally having interactions with the trees at that time. And then it was almost like you just gave me that other layer. And when I wrote my book, I was listening to you almost daily at that time when I could, because I would write, for hours, but I was like I would do 20 minutes, and then when I get ready, I was listening when I'm driving in the car to pick up Gigi from school or something. And I remember I was said to him, I said, I feel like I have more understanding about what I literally just wrote about, because once again, I wrote about it and then I listened to
Katie
Katie.
spoke about it.
And Katie was literally just talking about this. And I feel like, you know, I know more, I'm like, should I go back? Like, do I go back and change some of these chapters? And
Yeah, I said, no, just keep it for, this is what you went through because this is your journey. So close that out. And then your next book, you can expand on it, expound on exactly
Yeah.
what, you know, the deeper understanding of it.
I was teasing saying my next book's going to be the Katie book.
The Katie
Because
book,
it was
yeah.
like the whole understanding of it. But it was like with the trees, with the mountains, with
Yeah.
other consciousness that I was interacting with. So it was really interesting because it was just like,
And you're getting stuff with the mountains all the time too. Like she
Yeah.
could just be out driving. She's like, "Oh my god, I just heard them." It had like a song to it and everything.
I
you were
almost
talking
called
about.
you the
Yeah.
other day when we were picking him up from the hospital and we were driving home from the
Mhm.
I don't know if everybody wants to hear this. I almost called you because I was driving him home from the hospital. We picked him up, and I was in my very 3D like world. Like I'm thinking, like, you know, okay, when he gets out, I don't know if he's eaten today. I gotta go. I gotta fix him something, and you know, he's gonna have like, you know, I don't know, stuff that he's gonna want to do. I don't know how he feels, and I'm thinking all this stuff. And I was almost on top of the closest part of the mountains when you can drive on this one freeway. And they literally reached out to me. I was like, oh, I wasn't, I was like driving and I was almost, and I kind of went, oh, and they were, it was, you know, how you can put it into words, but it's not what they literally said. It's just that you get the context of it. Right. And so it was like, hey, you know what? We're still here, but we just want to tell you everything's going to be okay. Like, this is all good. You're all good. Cause I was worrying and I was like, very, and I was just kind of like, oh, like back to them going like, thank you. And I got really choked up and I got, my heart felt really like full. And I always say the same thing to the mountains, that I say it every time. And I said it and I almost started crying. And she was in the car and Gigi was in the car and he was in the car. And I kind of looked at everybody and I was going to say something. And I thought, no, it's not like a total nut job. So I was just driving home, but I was like thanking them when I was talking to them. That was like one of the first times that like I can always initiate an interaction and then I will get an interaction back. But that was the first time that I was like totally in my 3D thing. And I just got into close enough proximity to them that they were like, hey, you know, like, oh, hey. It's crazy. So anyway, but I almost called you. I almost like got home and I didn't say anything to them and I thought I should call Katie and then I was like, oh, it's
Oh man, call me next time. That's an amazing story.
It was crazy.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway, you know, I don't know if you've watched our show at all, but we have a segment in our show where my friend, she does tarot. And so what we like to do is ask Allison a question, and it's usually something around the topic, and then we play it with our guest, and then what we do is ask you, you know, kind of like your thoughts about it. So I'd like to do that now if
Sure.
we're ready to do that. Okay. So the question, oh, nice. Are you sharing?
I think so.
Can you see that?
There we go. I don't know what happened.
Mhm.
Okay, good. We want to go over her thing too, so that was kind of good. That was up.
Yeah. And
So
then
this
the
is
question.
Allison. So the question was, will humanity soon see examples of instant manifestations in the world? So that's our question.
Okay.
And you shared audio?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Emma. Hi, Katie. Okay, so for tonight's questions, I have meditated on and I have asked for the strongest energies to come through in the cards. So let's see what they have to say. All right, we've got the Knight of Wands, the Ten of Wands, and the Emperor. Okay, so this is very interesting for this type of question. So, yes, I'm getting for those that take action, there's definitely going to be manifestations coming, and we're going to see them instantly. I feel that for a lot of people, they're really burned out and they're not actually going to see their manifestations, that they don't know how to protect their energy. But for a lot of people, like I said, I'm getting that it's a yes, that we're going to see it. But there's so many burned out people, they're not going to have the manifestations for themselves. The people that can call it in are really going to be sitting pretty in this beautiful energy.
No. This happens at least once.
Oh, is that, it's not gonna click back on?
She'll come back.
Wait,
Maybe.
wait, that would make it work.
No,
Let's go back.
Allison.
Okay, hold on.
Can call it in are really going to be sitting pretty in this
No.
beautiful energy.
Allison.
It's a secret, guys.
Okay, hold on. Okay, we're at 111. Can we,
Yeah, you want me to just refresh it?
yeah, see if we can refresh. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, that didn't.
Hi, Allison.
Okay,
Hi,
let's
Lisa. Hi.
Let's go.
I thought that time at least she was gonna say hi to me too, but no.
Energy. This is the Emperor, and this is just telling me that, you know, people that basically they're the boss. You know, I mean, they're calling in this manifestation. It happens instantly, and they are just progressing down this road. I'm going to use this word. They're quantum jumping down the road to have these manifestations come in, and they're going to be instant. So I'm going to get some clarifiers for that. 7 of Wands, the Knight of Cups, the 10 of Pentacles, the 3 of Swords, the Hanged Man, and the 2 of Pentacles. Okay, so this is very interesting. So the first card out, this is why one of the reasons why I'm saying yes, is the Knight of Wands. And really, she's out there making it happen. She's taking that energy, she's rushing in to make it happen, and it's going to be instant, these manifestations that they're rolling in. But you're having to stand your ground in what it is you're trying to bring in, and it needs to be from a love space. This is the Knight of Love. So this is a matter of you coming at it with your heart, bringing it in, and that's how these manifestations are going to be able to come in instantly, and they're going to happen. And so, again, though, this is about you really standing behind what it is that you believe in with your heart. And that's how they come in. For the people that are really burned out in the world, and there's many of them, and they can't seem to protect their energy, so it's just pouring out of them. We've got the 3 of Swords and the 10 of Pentacles. And what this is telling me is that they are really having a hard time making this transition. So by them being so burned out, and this could be stressed out, burned out, they've just taken on too much, right? Because this is the 10 of Wands, that they're basically betraying themselves, that they have a broken heart over it. There's this feeling of loss. And this is where they want to be with this type of enlightenment, with friends, with family, with loved ones. You know, pets are there. You know, this is the ideal life that they really want, but they're having a hard time getting there. In fact, I feel that they're making bad decisions and bad choices. They think that they're making the right ones to get there, but it's not happening for them. And that's because they're so stressed out and burned out. They're not seeing clearly. They're not thinking clearly. And I just got a download that they could have gotten the Jabberwocky, and maybe that's also interfering with the way that they think. So, that's interesting. I haven't had that come up for a while. Okay, and then with the Emperor, this is telling me that, you know, when it's being clarified by the 2 of Pentacles and the Hanged Man card, suspension in this deck, that they're really tapping into this type of enlightenment in this heart space to really use their intelligence, where their mind, body, and soul is really in alignment for them to make smart decisions. And they're really balancing that. And sometimes with this card, there's somebody in the background that really wants to see some mischief happen. And I'm finding that, because we're talking about this more on a big spiritual level, that there's some, you know, maybe interdimensional beings, but there's somebody that doesn't want to see this happen. And this could just be a big energy. It could be a big group of people, but there's someone that doesn't want to see these manifestations happen. And it is there. It is an energy. We can't ignore it. It can't just all be love and light. There's love, light, and there's also their stuff, right? You know, it's kind of a combination. But yeah, so in answering the question, instant manifestations in the world, yes. Okay, and then John had a follow-up question, and it says, as we realize we can manifest, will negativity fall away? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to use a different deck. And like I said, these are all pre-shuffled and they're cleansed. And I ask for the strongest energy to come through when I ask for these. Okay. As we manifest, will negativity fall away? Oops. No, it will not.
Bummer.
It won't. And that's because there has to be both. And that's why I'm getting that no, it will not fall away. It's definitely going to be there front and center. This is about loss. It's about heartache. You know, you can put any type of spin on it, type of negativity. It's definitely going to be there. But it's not all that's there. This card's about freedom. This is about love, celebration, marriage, you know, celebrating these big milestones that are coming in. So, you know, it's kind of like, it's the opposite. This is like a broken heart, and this is like love. This is just spilling over. So you have that balance, but at the end of the day, you know, the night of love came, and this is, he's walking forward and he's presenting you with love. And this is what we all need to do, is to be in that vibration of love. What do we love? We're bringing love forth into the world. And that's how we mitigate the type of negativity. But will it fall away? No, it's still going to be there. Honestly, I don't need to even pull any more clarifiers, but I'm going to. Yeah, we've got the Judgment card, the Queen of Cups, the Sun card, the Six of Pentacles, the Tower, and the Justice card. So with this card, with the Three of Swords, it's being clarified by the Judgment card and the Queen of Cups. And this is what I was saying, is that there's still going to be this negativity, and people are going to have to wake up. See how they're being called to wake up out of their coffins? They're being called to a new life. They're really being called to wake up and have this compassionate review of their lives and take stock in themselves. So it's up to each individual to be able to do this. And again, this is the Queen of Love. She's following her heart. It's that love vibration. We cannot excuse how big that love vibration is, right? I mean, it's all coming down to love. So yeah, that's how people are going to be able to overcome it. And then here with the Four of Wands, it's being clarified by the Sun card and the Six of Pentacles. This is the most positive card in the deck. So this is the opposite of negativity. And will it fall away? No, but this is how you proceed forward to mitigate it and to keep negativity at a minimum in your life. But again, it's up to the individual. This is about enlightenment. This is about love. This is about this type of prosperity and abundance and success, and just really walking through life with God and with love. And then what this card is telling me is that you have the knowledge and the power and the resources to make it happen for yourself. But again, it's up to you, and for you to remain balanced in this position. Balance the light and the dark, you know, but you have the ability to do that. And then for you to follow your heart. Remember, he's walking towards your future too. With following your heart, we've got the Tower moment, and we've got the Justice card. And really what this is telling me is that by you following your heart, all that negativity is going to fall away. So that's how it's up to the individual, that you're brought back down to reality by staying in this loving vibration. And that's you standing in your truth when that happens. And it's also accepting the dark side that you have in you, or any type of negativity, or what's around you, right? So it's like you have this loving vibration, but you accept the light and the dark. You know that it's there, but it doesn't mean you have to be dark, but you acknowledge it and you know that it's there. And then what this is telling me again is that this is just, you know, really you having this maturity of thought, and you're really able to stand in your truth, and you're able to see it for what it is, but you're definitely standing in a loving vibration. All right, so that's what I have for you for today. Sorry about the dogs barking. I just got a package delivered. What timing? All right, everybody, sending you lots of love. Bye for now.
Okay, do you want to show Katie?
Well, thank you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, let's
do
just
that
show
too.
that real quick so that we don't miss that. And then, okay, there it is. So that's your website. And if you scroll down, I think it shows all the places that our podcast is on and the books. That's what we're going over today.
Yes, and you guys definitely need to read it. It's so interesting.
Really interesting.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get a few more questions in before that was the second book. And then, yeah, there's the
There it is.
podcast,
Okay.
Our Next Existence.
There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Thanks,
definitely
guys.
check it out, guys.
So what did you think about what she got with the cards?
There's a lot in there. You know, I can I think it's funny as you go forward in awakening and you question more and more and more and more about what reality was, and you open more and more and more to other people's experiences being possible. There's really nothing that I come across that I feel like some part of me can't connect with. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's right or wrong per se, but as she was talking, there were definitely things that I've experienced or am experiencing or have heard from the chorus that resonated for me.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I think there was a lot about the heart coming up. And you know, the heart has a lot to do with season 3 and distance, which is what we're talking about right now. So it's interesting. This is a present question, and that kept coming up a lot. But essentially, as you go forward in love, in that neutrality, you begin to access other energetic tools. You begin to feel more directly more of what you are. We have some words for these aspects now, but honestly, there's many and they're nuanced, and we don't have words quite yet. We will feel an abundance of these things before we have actual ways to describe them for a little bit.
Mm.
But the words that we have right now are something like intuition, instinct, things of that direct knowing, right? I just knew I had to go there. I knew it was time to get up and leave. I knew something about that person. Also, memory. Memory doesn't sound like a super cool, energetic tool, but by the chorus's view, it's revolutionary because basically you're standing in the resonance of this present moment in time, simultaneously connecting to a different frequency in time by our view. We string them along in a line. To them, they're all very simultaneous. So you are actually multi frequency at once anytime you remember something. That will expand into a greater sense of freedom across time.
Wow.
And also a greater sense of possibility within any given period of time itself. We are not yet conscious of all the ways that we limit possibility based on periods of time. So, right, if you slave away on your book for 6 months, okay, that sounds possible. If you slaved away on your book for 6 minutes, right? We all laugh. Our sense of absurdity is our sense that we just come right up against something that we don't believe, like Katie. But in other corners of the universe, that's completely possible because anything is possible with the infinite universe.
Mm.
So going back to her cards, when she was saying, is direct manifestation possible? And yes, it is through this heart space. Yes, absolutely, because there are so many tools, concrete tools that relate to that. Now, we could just wave our hands and say, as we expand, we'll be able to manifest more. That's true. And also, as we go forward, we will get actually more nuanced about the ways we feel energy, about the ways we connect things, about the ways we sense the timing of a manifestation or sense a different kind of creation and flow with it for a little while and allow it to come through. All of that is accessed through the heart, through the point of neutrality into these broader aspects of ourselves. So when she was saying there's other people who are burnt out, and they're going to have a harder time directly manifesting, you can see why. Burnt out is often, but not always, a type of heart sickness. It's a loss of that love and zest for life, of that free flowing creativity where you feel supported. I mean, when we feel burnt out, how often are we like flying high on synchronicity? Burnt out feels like the hamster wheel you just can't get off of, right? It's just like so hard and it just keeps coming.
Yeah.
It's a very different frequency than being in that sort of like, okay, I'm allowing. Now, as humans, sometimes it's hard to allow stuff here. It just is. We are becoming more and more clear on our sense of preference. And as we do so, we are also expanding to see more of the universe. And we are going to see things that we do not prefer. This is part of coming out of the sandbox and into the vaster playground, where we need to rely on our sense of preference to energetically navigate through these situations. Because especially as we get into the wider universe, there's no way you can stop all the things you don't prefer. It's a very, very big universe.
Yeah.
So there are some people who are at the juncture or at the step or the phase where they may start to see more and more and more and more and more and more and more of the things that they don't prefer, which is part of awakening with clarity to their own sense of what they do prefer. It's not an intractable situation, although sometimes it might feel like it when you're in it. It is a phase. It is a way of learning. Now, that being said, I'll talk about some of her later cards where she said, some people want to stop the heart feeling and there might be a trickster under the bridge. So this is where maybe I'll go a little bit beyond the beginner messages for this interview and say, yes, there's a vast universe of beings out there. Some of those beings would prefer that humanity not awaken. It doesn't mean it's destined to be one way or the other. It doesn't mean it's suffering forever. It doesn't mean anything. It's the same exact thing we were just talking about. There will be things that we prefer, and there will be things that we do not. Free will is fundamental to all creation. So we did not come this far just to awaken to the fact that we don't have free will.
Yeah.
We are awakening to our free will, and in expanding into that, are seeing more of the universe, what we prefer and what we don't, and are coming into a next level of learning how to navigate and choose what we prefer, coming out of an experience of limitation and expanding back into our infinite selves.
Yeah, I know it's really interesting too, because I always look at like probability, and I was looking at it a little bit in the book here. And when you look at it, like even if you manifested the smallest thing and you feel like you manifested it, I think we need to really be grateful beyond belief, because it's not just our limited, world that we live in here, that maybe say one in 100,000 times you may get it. With the universe, and that we're living simultaneous lifetimes, going, the probability goes through the roof that you're able to manifest something. So it's truly a miracle. And so the gratitude that you have to have for that, I think it is discounted, but it can't be, it shouldn't be. And I think if you can really grasp that gratitude, you almost automatically come from the heart space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely, I agree.
And gratitude for what we created here and experienced. Now, that's going to take some stepping towards, because we're coming out of the place of not, wanting this limitation, which is what energized it. It's how we constructed it and maintained it. So we're moving out of that fight against it into like I kind of see how this was useful. As we come into that, really what we're going to see is that there are times, and I know it's hard to think about sometimes when we're here and in it, but there are times where we will prefer to disallow energy. And it is now a skill set that many of us have here. We have an understanding of many different kinds of energy, including the perception or the ability to disallow it at times. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in our context here, but as we get out there and we understand more about different kinds of energy, there may be very applicable uses for what we learn to do here through this experience of limitation.
Interesting. I like that. And you're right. And I was going to say something else too, but that's for past the second book. So I'll wait and to see that. You have another question that you guys had that you wanted to do? Because, I do.
Oh yeah, she's
Go ahead.
Okay, my turn. So I know you mentioned in your book the three engines of reality, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier about time, distance, and body. So I was just wondering if you could kind of expand on that a little bit, because
Yeah,
that was really interesting, that part. So
sure. So in the first book, which is sort of the course's overview of awakening, they introduce what they call our three engines of reality from their perspective, not necessarily theirs or others. And they are time, distance, and body. Now, these are sort of inextricably linked and interwoven. And so you talk about one, it leads to the other. But they say that really you could bunch all of our beliefs, in that galactic size belief system complex that we've created while we've been here. You could sort of bunch them by these three engines. The engines are the enactors in some ways of these beliefs. They're the ways by which we experience them. So we've got massive beliefs of limitation that all get woven into our lives through an experience that we simply call time. So the ticking clock, I'm running out of time. We have experiences of stress and failure and aging and go on, right? Like time is like, just kind of can crunch you down. But as we are awakening, we are now having different experiences of time, right? Where it's sort of like, wow, that went really fast. Or I thought that would take me months to research. And I just found this person who had this book that has all of it in it, right? So there are these new and growing ways where we circumvent the previous rules of time. And those rules, you could say, were the things that we used to believe. That now, as we're expanding, our beliefs are changing. So this is how the chorus sort of lays out their perspectives. In the first book, it's the overview of awakening as a whole. And then the second book is their treatment of time. And then the third book, should it arrive, it's a team effort. I don't know. But the third book and the third season that we've started already is about distance. And distance, so time has a lot to do with possibility, but it also has a lot to do with belonging. Humans, as we start to contemplate multiple lives or time without limits, sometimes get this bottomless sense of then who am I? If I had 100 other lives, like what does that mean for who I am? And as we expand through these questions, really what we're broadening is our sense of belonging in a vaster context where these things could be fluid, but we still have a sense of who we are. That sense of who we are is more of the core frequency type of concept that they introduce in book one. They say you have a resonance. You have a resonance that's unique unto creation. You each have it. And we know that you all look alike and talk alike and walk alike by their view.
Yeah.
We're all practically identical here. That you have this experience here. But as you come to know more and more of the vaster parts of you, really what you're coming to expand into is your core frequency, your unique resonance in creation. And, they are very loving in their presentation of this, and I highly recommend it. It's one of those messages that you wish the whole world would read because they say that creation is not complete without you. Your specialness is required for creation to be complete. And the more you expand into your own uniqueness, the more creation expands. We are the generators of expansion and of creation itself by some views.
Wow,
Well,
that's deep.
yeah, that's deep. That is deep. They would tease you about your time, right? Like if you were looking at clocks and you
Yes.
were.
They still do every now and then. When it's like, you slip in and out of the beliefs and whatever. They used to call me, they would say clock worshiper. And I was like, what? I wasn't even looking at the clock, and they'd say clock worshiper. And it took me forever to realize that what I was doing was mentally calculating how much time this would take, how much time I had left. I wasn't looking at a physical clock, but I was basically constraining what was possible for myself based on a normal human life that we have here. Oh, I got to pick up. I have school pickup in 20 minutes. So I probably shouldn't start that right now, but I can do that. And they'd say clock worshiper. I'd be like, how? And then they would say, try it. Try it anyway. Do you feel inspired? Do you feel a desire? Would you prefer to do that right now? And it would take a minute, right? I'd be like, my preference, we talking about it? I'm working on my to-do list. So it would be like, what do I prefer? Okay. And I'd sit there for a second and be like, yeah, I really do want to work out right now. I want to work out right now. So I would go and put on my workout clothes, even though I was supposed to be ready to go out the door. And then sure enough, as I finished tying my laces, I get a phone call from a friend that she's going to pick up my son and then they're going to
Oh,
meet me here. And it happened over and over and over again.
That's
But I
incredible.
wouldn't have known unless I had tried it, because we need to bring these experiences to consciousness for ourselves, right? Experience, by the Course's view, is consciousness, is being conscious, I guess I should say. Consciousness is a vaster topic, but to be conscious of something is to experience it. So they are constantly encouraging me, go experience it, go try it, see what you bring to conscious, you're conscious
yeah.
in that example. And after you do so, really what you're doing is building beliefs in your belief system complex that you can rely on the next time. And that is how we build the foundation and the latter steps through awakening. So I come to this next time when I shouldn't have the time to do it and blah, 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 blah. And then something draws me up. And I say, but last time I changed into my workout clothes and I didn't know yet that that would happen, but it worked out. I think I'm going to try it again this time. And that's how you build sort of this belief context as you expand that supports you as you move into these other directions.
Incredible. And really timely for all of us right now as we're making such huge transitions to remember to just try it and let's see how it goes. Speaking of time, do you have time for a couple more questions? Because we're kind of
Yes.
running into yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm here for.
I thank you for that. I kind of wanted you to hit, and it's not necessarily in the book, but I kind of wanted you to hit on the subject of what is the veil and what's changing about it.
That's a great question. So they get into more detail about this in the second book. So I'll try and keep it at the high level. But this actually has a lot to do with our history. And in the second book, when the chorus talks about time, their view of our experience of time, they actually give sort of an overview of our ancient history. If we were to look at it linearly, and they say that looking at time linearly is fine, it's as valid as any other perspective in the universe, it's just a way of experiencing and learning. And they say that at one point, we made a choice to forget, to disconnect from all that we were and to forget that we had been that, which led to basically a series of energetic shifts that led to our experience as we know it today, being a five senses embodied human in this format. One of those steps along the way, there were a series of cataclysms as we would understand them, or massive energetic shifts, maybe as other beings would understand them. One of those decisions along the way led to a type of destruction that created the veil of death. Now, at that time, we were much more energetically connective. And so, really, that kind of creation meant a disconnection. There were then frequencies that we used to be able to sort of like whoop, whoop, go back and forth and see and perceive and interact with. And now, because of this disconnection, we couldn't anymore. So you could see how, from our perspective, becoming more and more five senses humans, that might look like a singular barrier. And that's true perspective, as true as any other in the universe. Another way of looking at it is that there was now a limitation placed upon us where we could no longer access those other frequencies. The chorus is even more specific in their second book, and they say that you could look at the veil of death as basically agreements based on the limitations of eyesight. So, by their view, eyesight was the way in which we first signed ourselves up for a lot of this limitation. You can imagine that if we were vast energetic beings and we could feel things and interpret energy in all sorts of ways, and we narrowed that down to the stuff we can see on visible wavelengths of light, it's a little bit like putting on blinders to the whole universe.
Yes.
So, by the Course's view, those frequencies are alive and well beyond the veil, the same as these frequencies are alive and well. The veil is sort of the blinders that we put on ourselves for the purposes of this experience. And, they talk a lot about death. They touch on it in the first book, and then we touch on it a little bit in episodes throughout the seasons. But, they say that your loved ones are alive and well on these other frequencies. When they pass away and they move beyond your limitations of perception, they're still busy doing stuff. They're still existing in the universe. It's your perception that is unable to expand to reach them where they are. But they also say that the frequencies next to us are not terribly different than the frequencies here by many perspectives. So you can see where the chorus is way out beyond belief. We might look like here's one side of the veil, here's the other side of the veil. It's practically the same.
Yeah.
And by our view, it's like, what? That's the difference between life and death. That's huge and insurmountable. But the fact that we're already having conversations with beings, having ideas about life after death, feeling like we feel our loved ones after they pass, talking to mediums who bring across amazing information, are all indications that the veil is falling or thinning, or also that we are expanding beyond the strict agreements of eyesight that we made, and we are beginning to expand into other ways that we perceive and interact with energies and tools that reach to those other frequencies that were previously restricted to us.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, well,
It's a lot to take in, right? And to think of it in those terms. And I thought that that was a good thing for people to think about for like when we have you back for the next one, because there's more about that kind of stuff on that one. It's interesting.
Mm.
So I wanted to ask you, by your perception personally, what do you know about the different types of consciousnesses and beings that exist on the earth plane? Like what is your understanding of that? And I know it's probably, but what you've personally witnessed and seen and felt.
So the further I've gone, the more I've questioned the definition of Earth. Is really what you get to. So first you start being like, wait a second. I don't think it's as strictly defined as we thought it was strictly defined. That's probably your first step. And usually people come to that crossroads and they get into like sort of flat earth, is space real, like those sorts of conspiracy theories. And those are important questions because really what we're awakening to is we perhaps had defined reality and our place in it based on our five frequencies, our five senses, which is what we were coming from. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we were like, okay, it has to look like something because that's what reality is. You see it. So I think the way that I understand maybe Earth today has more to do with like a lattice or layers of energies and frequencies that are sort of close in proximity and sometimes overlap and interact. Now, it's not to say that like I'm saying there are no planets. And in fact, I'm coming from aerospace. That was my prior career. Viewing something as a planet is a perfectly valid perspective because remember, all perspectives are valid in the infinite universe. This is really where you start stepping into holding multiple perspectives at once, not needing to invalidate something you don't prefer, just starting to navigate what you do prefer. There are times when we may each prefer to view Earth as a planet, a circle of rock. There may be times where we prefer to look at it as sort of an energetic layer and a big energetic sandwich. And you can navigate between those sandwich layers as much as you want, right? And that Earth itself is subject to our own interpretations. The way she changes or talks to us or what's on her or what's in her is much more fluid than maybe we thought, because all those beings that constitute the population of Earth right now, as we maybe think of it, are also moving around and are doing lots of things. They are fluid. Their creations are fluid. So we're used to coming from a perspective of singularity, which is often static. We took a snapshot of something and then we studied it. And when we start to get into questions of our place and our environment, the more we meet other beings, the more we're going to come into contact with other ways of existing that will call into question that static model. Things are in motion a lot more than we thought. And in fact, physical things on the Earth plane or the Earth planet are actually more in motion than we had been able to perceive coming from our experience of limitation. Because if the environment moves around that much, it's a little bit beyond mental capacity the way we had designed it to be limited. Right? You expect to get up and your cornfield to be there the next day. That's like fundamental to how we play the game because I have to go, toil in the cornfield for my survival. What am I going to do if it's gone? So as you expand more into these other possibilities, the environment reflects your ability to see the possibility in the environment. So I think that, could we say that there are a lot of other representatives from other civilizations on our planet right now? Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. Because if it's a frequency type thing, and there are other beings who can move more fluidly through different frequencies, it might make a lot of sense that they pass through here. Our bus stop is just like a gazillion other frequency bus stops, and they might have things to do here, people to meet here. We were the ones who couldn't perceive them. But I also think that it's fair to say that our perspective that we were alone and now maybe just discovering other civilizations is also a perfectly fine and valid perspective. Because by way of our version of our own history, those things were not here and were not interacting with us. And now they are. And from a perspective that's true, if you don't have a conscious memory of ever having interacted with them and nothing in the group consensus says they're here, that's also a valid way to look at it. So this really is an important exercise as we step out into what do you prefer? It's all true in some ways. And really, it just matters moment to moment what best serves you on your path. And that is the answer for not only as we begin to view the actual possibility and diversity of our own environment, Earth as we understand it, but also as we come into contact with other beings more directly. They're going to have a lot of different perspectives. You don't have to agree with any of them if you don't want to. It all comes down to what you prefer.
And so in your book, with the human awakening, that's really what it is the perception of an understanding of the fact that we're stepping out of the parameters, right? That we were kind of holding ourselves in for so long. And you always say that's like, this is a game, and they reference that, right? The chorus, they say that this is where they call it the game.
They call it the game.
Yeah, and that there's like a board, and we're kind of lifting ourselves off a little bit by just questioning or being able to have these kind of conversations and perceive something beyond what we thought.
Yep. I mean, you have to be a game player that's lifting a little bit off the game board to even say, wait a second, what's this game board? To even have questions, right? About Earth itself and our concept of Earth. You have to sort of be pulling your head up out of the cornfield for a second, out of that pitch for survival. And they say that those are all growing indications of our awakening, this space that we're creating to wonder or to marvel or to look at things with curiosity. Those are all actually frequencies off the game board where we were really just driven moment by moment by those unconscious beliefs, preventing, protecting, survival, eating, tired, right? And now we have these moments of like, you put your fork down and you go, is Earth flat? That's amazing. I mean, from the chorus's view, they're like, look how far you've come. They think everything we created here is amazing. They think our awakening is amazing. They see the original choice of love. And by their view, it was a choice of love to participate in this experience of limitation. And they see it as love throughout the whole thing. And now even through our awakening too.
So what is the choruses, if you had to say to people that, hadn't read the book or seen the podcast yet, What's the takeaway about why the chorus is interacting with us at this stage and what they want us to know?
I would say that they're interacting with us at this stage because by their own description, we have expanded to their door. They are very clear. They're like, we didn't descend down into your reality to fix it. We think it's amazing. And you came to this point in your awakening where you are now ready for some of these perspectives because you're releasing some of the limitation. So it's okay to now know some of these things about your emotions because you're stepping out of the unconscious experience of them. You're becoming conscious of how you feel and what you want to do about it. And so it's almost like we wandered out of the game board and we're sort of in this vaster place and they were there. And they're like, we're so glad you're here. They really are so excited for this whole thing and this whole conversation. And I think the big takeaway, a lot of these concepts are so fascinating and have really helped me a lot in understanding what I'm going through, not necessarily taking it away, just again, bringing it out to more perspectives of what it could be, which increases my ability to choose my sense of freedom. But as a human going through this, I would say one of their messages that I love most is that you really can't mess it up. That awakening is assured, that we are expansive beings underneath all of this. And so we are sort of going to just keep expanding. It's just how it works, by their view. So they say, we understand that from the place you're coming from, where there's right and wrong and better, and that was an even better choice, you can feel like you made a bad choice and this would have been a better choice. But they said, understand that because you are on this path of awakening, any choice that you make will ultimately lead to your expansion. So let's say you choose not to do the thing and you miss out on the opportunity. Well, then you're grappling with why you missed out on it. And then you answer a phone call you wouldn't have answered. And then someone tells you about something and a light bulb goes off for you. So even in the experience, a human experience of missing an opportunity, there will be something that brings to light something you believed that was previously limiting to you. And now that you see it, you can choose differently. So it's heartening at a time when it might feel like so many things are going wrong by our previous view. But new energy from our perspective, they say, often looks like chaos because it's unpredictable. We didn't plan on it. That's not what we thought we wanted. It seems out of our control. And they're saying, yes, and you're awakening to all those things that you believed in this process, that this new energy is expansive because you are expansive. And so really, you can sit on the couch a little while longer if you need to, or you can get up on stage if you feel like that's what you prefer. But ultimately, you are loved. And this is what awakening is.
It's really comforting to look at it that way too, because being someone who's going through my early stages and trying to figure it out, am I doing this right? Is this wrong? I haven't seen anything, and seeing everybody's journey is different, but knowing ultimately like you're still gonna get there. It's just the journey and the steps you follow, or it varies from person to person. And like literally as you were saying this, like I've been getting a lot of like butterflies when I feel like I'm like taking in excess energies and things that are resonating with me, and like I'm like shaking right now. So like I'm not gonna cry, but no, that's just it's very comforting to know. So anyone who's on the journey years down the line or early on, like I am too, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. So thank you for saying that, because I definitely needed to hear
Absolutely.
that.
I can't tell you how many times I'd be like, guys, say it again. And they would be like, you can't mess it up, like talking to a baby, but I just needed to hear it. I'd be like, okay.
Right.
Yeah, tell me again. Everything's well. They say all is well. They say that all the time. And from their view, it really is, because if you see someone all the way from the time they chose to step onto the playground and all the ways they've run through the playground and they're about to exit the playground, it's just like, of course it's all well. It's just the experience you signed up for. And that perspective doesn't have to be ours all the time because we're on the playground and sometimes it's freaking hard. But it's nice to know that that perspective is out there. It's nice to know that they resonate with it so fully that their love, I think, is often very palpable when they come through in the podcast because that's where they are. That's where they're resonating. It's just nice to know sometimes, when you land face first on the playground, somebody believes that it's all right. It's
Yeah.
going to work out
great.
Yeah, you were gonna ask her about the beloved thing, right?
Yeah, I was just curious because I know you kind of mentioned in there like why certain words were capitalized and why certain things were said the way they were said. But I just wanted to know how come they called us beloved? It felt very just like loving and it's like someone like you're very close and like intimate with. So that kind of just stood out to me.
Familial.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think it is all of those things. When they use beloved, to me, when it comes through, it feels like if you had 10 minutes to listen to them list all the ways that they love us, it gets summarized into one word, beloved.
Oh,
Like as if they just see you inside and out, top to bottom. There's not a single part of you that they don't think is incredible. And then they address you from that standpoint.
Mm.
And also, they have been very clear that they understand that from our perspective, it's very hard to see more than who's not in the room with us on our visible wavelengths of light. And they say, but from our perspective, it is very easy to see every single one of you. And I think that can be felt sometimes when their words come through. It feels like, oh my God, they're talking to my heart. How do they do that? How can they possibly do that? And they're saying, well, from where we are, of course you can see other hearts. Of course you can see other energies. Why would you not be able to in the infinite universe, except when you created an experience of limitation where you expressly could not do those things, which is what we did. So to them, it's very easy to address every single one of us as the unique beings that we are because they see our unique frequencies and they love every single one of those.
Just before we close up with this, two things. One, I wish I would have said at the beginning of it, I loved how they kind of, have spoken about us before and seen us. And there was different times where they seem to have such a sense of humor about
They're
kind
funny.
of what we're kind of dealing with and stuff. I love their take and on those things, but the other thing that I kind of wanted to just hit on at the end of it is that it's so reassuring to know that as you're coming to grips with the fact that there are others, other consciousness, other types of beings out there, that some that exist that are so loving and so accepting of where we are, how we are, and that they kind of can see through all of those things that we put on ourselves and look at it and they're like, it's great. No, you're good.
Good job, guys.
Yeah. I love that they exist and that they're out there, and the more that people expand, that we're gonna, interact with them or someone like them, and there's so many more, and who knows, but it's not Hollywood version of other beings, right, where it's like alien or things like that, where it's scary and it's dark and it's they're actually cheering us on, and they can't wait until more of us can interact with them too. And so I love them. I can't wait until I can have interactions with them or people like them. And I call them people, I don't know if that's correct, but consciousness is like them. And it's really kind of cool to know.
Yeah.
That's
And you can feel that love anytime, no matter what you're doing too. And I think that's what helps kind of drive people to do what they're doing as well and continue to push forward even through those challenging times or those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So one last thing though, is it like no, there's no wrong, there's no
Oh.
wrong decisions? Well, I'm just
I just want to make sure I'm good. Terrifying.
Is it like if you make a good decision, it's like good job, and if you make a bad decision, well, you can learn from failure. You learn how to do
But
better.
good job.
Or is it just all good? Is it, or is it like?
So
He's
no,
like,
I
"Oh,
get
no,
it.
I just need
It's
to
a good question. I get it. Okay, so this is what I would say. From our human perspective, we've come from there are good choices and there are bad choices. And now we've moved a little bit further in awakening and we're like, okay, there are good choices and then there are choices that we learn from. See how it's a little softer, right? It's a little more loving. It's like you have many opportunities. You have opportunities for improvement,
learn
right?
from this."
It's a little bit more loving than like you chose wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, now keep going out, way out on that scale, all the way out to the chorus. And the chorus would say, you are achieving absolutely everything you came here to experience, no matter which choice you make throughout all time that you are in this perspective.
Okay.
You cannot not achieve what you came here to experience. So they are all perfectly right choices.
So put the smart money on me.
Oh.
All right.
Now, does that mean we might still come across a lot of things that we prefer differently after we make a
Yes.
choice? Yes, it does. But also, you can add in the perspective of, but I kind of came here to experience that. And I did. I just did. And I'm conscious of it now and I'm aware of it and I'm integrating it and like I am crushing it and being limited. And honestly, even if you were unconscious to all of it, you absorb the knowledge energetically. So even if you have, by our views, a totally messed up life, think of what you've absorbed energetically here by learning all of those things. So then again, from the chorus's view, you just took a master class through this playground.
Yeah, that's why. So in the grand scheme of things, you're always gonna prove, you're always gonna be, it'll always work
Yeah.
on the macro.
Yeah.
That is nice and reassuring.
I'm excited to,
All my mistakes, I'm good.
You're like, nailed it.
Exactly.
I meant to do that.
Thank you so much
Exactly.
for coming
Awesome.
today and having this conversation with us. And again, the book is the Book of Human Awakening, and it's available. Can you see there? Is that better? No.
Yeah.
No, it's
Kinda.
all. There we go.
We have 450 likes.
Yeah, we have too many. Anyway, it's really good. Katie and the chorus, and I love it. It's changed the way I look at everything.
Mhm.
And the way that I understand, reality and life to be. So I'm eternally grateful to you and the chorus for writing it and your second book too. And I suggest everybody go find this podcast. You can do it on Spotify. She's got it on YouTube and Apple and all kinds of places, but it's worth listening to. And start at episode 1 of, the first
Episode.
Episode of the first season.
season. Thank you. She didn't get season. Start there because you really you have to. This stuff builds,
Mhm.
and it kind of goes through. And I got through all of them. Thank goodness you put a couple more up that were in season 3. I called you and I was like, "Oh no, I'm having a panic attack. They're all gone." So I told you I was going to start over on it, and I did. And then I saw you posted a couple. I was like, "Yes." So I went back and I was
And
listening. to it.
there's many people that could make an impact on the world, but there's few that are a game changer.
Yeah.
And
You definitely
You're one
are.
of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
sincerely, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really it's helped me more than I can tell you, and I know that if it's doing it for me, there's more out there that will benefit
Yeah.
and find, when you're ready to hear the information and it starts clicking, you're just kind of like, oh, and the thing that's amazing about them too, is that I didn't realize you were going to go there, right? It's like you start talking about something and you were talking about a subject, and I was like, oh, cool. Okay, let's hear this. And then you start going at it, and I'm like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay, that's interesting. And it keeps, it happens like that. So I strongly recommend it. I can't wait to have you back to talk about book 2. And I just appreciate you so much for coming.
Yes,
and being here today.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
we love you.
Yeah, we
I
love you
love
so
you
much.
guys too. Love you guys too. Thank you so much. I
Thank
love being
you.
here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.
Episode 14.
Yes.